Okay. Oh, sorry. There's a couple people here. So I'm like, I'm setting up on YouTube. Anyway, okay. So I'm just adjusting my YouTube camera here, my webcam. Okay. Whoops. Oh, that's weird. Okay. Anyway, we got a few people on here. My name's Lisa. I'm a parenting coach. I'm on here every single day doing a live. Then I'll be going over to Instagram. Then I'll be going over to TikTok. But YouTube, I'm on here the whole time, and I'm on here every single day. And YouTube is where I save all of my lives. So anyway, I don't know why I'm doing that with my hair. Anyway, so if you go in the link above or wherever you see the description, you'll see my link, and you can get my free behavior board. You can buy one of my mini toddler courses, or you can buy my boot camp course, or hire me for coaching. And someone said to me, I think a lot of people don't realize this, but I've had a couple things yesterday. I had two people say to me, gee, I wish you worked with teenagers. They're my favorite age. I started my business working with teen crisis. So yeah, if you've got teenagers, ask questions. They're my favorite age because that's the one. Not a lot of people specialize in teenagers. So, I find I can make the most difference, the drastic results with teenagers. So anyway, ask your parenting questions. I'm right here for you. That's what I'm here for. And then I'll be moving over to Instagram. Then I'll be moving over to TikTok. This is actually the best place to catch me on live because it's my smallest live is the Facebook one. And also YouTube, but YouTube's not a social media. It's a search engine, and I haven't quite figured that out yet. So I am on there, but just sort of figuring that out. But anyway. Okay, so ask your parenting questions if you have any, and I'll do my best to answer them. I thought I'd try a different time. We'll see how it goes. If you do have today off and you're taking time off, you're probably grocery shopping. So I'm assuming that there won't be a lot of people turning up here. Anyway, so I'll just sit here waiting for your parenting questions. If you are on YouTube and you have a question, I'm looking down there too. So just waiting for your parenting questions. Well, if no one's asking questions, I'll just ramble on a little bit here. I've just got a few notes that things that I like to bring up every so often and remind myself to talk about is that as a leader, I teach leadership parenting. It's not about you. It's not about how your kids feel about you. It's how you make them feel about themselves. When you bring out the best in your children, they like themselves when they're with you. They tend to want to please you. Because you make them feel good about themselves. So it's about getting your kids to like themselves, increasing their self-esteem. That's what I see leadership parenting as. You don't want obedient little soldiers. You want children who make good choices and have a lot of pride, and they also have a voice. Anyway, so ask away if you have any parenting questions. Gee, I'm getting cold now. No, I'm not. My hands are, but the rest of me is hot anyway. Not hot, but, not cold. There you go. Okay, here we go. Hello, my daughter doesn't drink in school. I would like to ask your advice on how to motivate her. Well, that's sort of more of a medical or a nutrition thing, so I can't really answer that. But yeah, my kids were raised in Australia, and so they had to drink a lot during the day, and they had drink breaks at school. Like they would literally say, okay, let's all have a drink now because they had to. Do you offer coaching in French? I'd like to, but I can't speak French, so no. I actually took French lessons. And I did the immersion ones, and they kicked me out. I was so bad at it. They said, I'm really sorry, but you're bringing the class down. There was only 3 of us or 4 of us. And but yeah, I'm that bad at learning another language. I can't think sideways. Okay, so yeah, I can't really help you with that, how to get kids to drink, because that's sort of going into more the nutrition and medical side of things. So yeah, I don't even want to tell you what I did different things with my kids, but well, I can tell you what I did with my kids. I used to put like flavor drops in their water. My daughter especially. My son loved drinking water. He drank a ton of it, but my daughter not so much. So I would put little flavor drops in. It's kind of a hard thing to recommend, but I would look for the natural ones, the ones that weren't sweetened with artificial stuff, and the ones that didn't have a lot of sugar. It was more natural sweeteners. Yeah, that's what I did. How do I start being a leader when my child is 2.5, approaching 3 years old? You say what you mean and mean what you say. You follow through. You don't do empty threats. They pick up on that. Also, if they do something you don't like, you stay completely calm and you use consistent corrective actions. So if you say, okay, we're going to be going out the door now, so we have to get going now. And if they say no, You go pick them up and you carry them and you take them out. Make it happen. So yeah, say what you mean what you say. Someone on YouTube said, how do you handle changing world when it goes against how you were raised? Not failing students, participation awards, learning to navigate parenting in this new age, gentle world. Well, I don't teach any of that, so I don't know. God, I hate participation awards. A bunch of garbage. I remember the first time I ever heard about that. It was about 30 years ago, and I heard about participation awards. I said, are you freaking kidding me? You get an award just for turning up? You know what you're raising? You didn't validate my feelings. Well, I'm just the bus driver lady. Like, come on, this self-entitled atmosphere that, oh, how dumb is that? Yeah, I don't teach any of that. I want to raise strong individuals who know how to get things done and they're hard workers and yeah, they don't expect handouts. You ask about your granddaughter. I don't teach grandparenting because if I tell you what to do and the parents don't like it, you see, I only teach parenting. I stay in that lane. But if you were to ask as if you're the parent, I didn't remember your name there. So, okay, on YouTube, someone said, me too, doing my best with my 5-year-old twins. Love your content. That's the new age parenting. Yeah, I saw that coming in and I thought, oh my God, we're in big trouble. Those kids are they're gonna be treating their parents like dish rags. They're gonna be wiping their feet all over them. And of course, that's what's happening. Parents are so afraid of their children now. Yeah, it's not good. I'm generalizing. There's lots of parents who aren't, but it's more of a trend that they are definitely giving into their kids. They want to make everything easy for them. Yeah, they're trying to roll out the red carpet for their kids all the time, and they're always trying to avoid a scene. A scene or a fit or a tantrum is your child's brain processing, hey, wait, I don't get everything I want when I want and how I want it. And that's okay. They got to learn that. The sooner they learn that, the better. Reality, the real world is going to be agony for them. If you're a pleaser style parent, the real world is going to be very challenging for your kids. That's why I always say, if you've got the pleaser style parenting thing going on, you're raising self-entitled snowflakes with mental health issues. And look where we are. I used to say that years and years ago. I said that. And no one was listening to me back then because it was hardcore, took over. This whole pleaser parent style just took over. Now, not so much because the kids are getting older and they're learning that it's not working. You know, teachers are quitting right, left, and center because they're having to do everything now. They have to teach children about manners and respect. That's the parents' job. Parents aren't doing that. So when their kids are acting out at school, they blame the teachers. That's what teachers tell me. That's why they're quitting right, left, and center. I'm so glad you do this. Thanks for your help. You're very welcome. How do I get my 14? Oh, good, a teenage question. I love teenagers. They're my favorite age. How do I get my 14-year-old daughter to not be smart aleck after every time I ask her to do a chore or just back talking? I have an older daughter and raised her the same and she doesn't do this. What am I doing wrong? Okay, they just have different temperaments, okay? So you have to learn how to work with her temperament. Use my behavior board or you can hire me for coaching. The behavior board, I call it with teenagers, it's called an accountability chart. You're on there too. And if she doesn't get her chores done, there's a consequence. That's it. I don't tell kids to do stuff. There's a consequence if they don't. So it's life's like that. If you don't pay your rent, you get kicked out. You don't pay for your groceries, you go to jail. If you don't pay your taxes, you go to jail. Like there's a consequence to everything in life. So make sure that's how they learn that. They learn more about the world from you teaching them about consequences at home. So set them up for success in life. My kids, I made them both go out and get a part-time job when they were 15 years old. That's legally here in Canada, or in Vancouver anyway. That's where, that's the age where you can go out, legally get a part-time job somewhere. Anyway, and I was praying to God that they would both have to clean a public toilet at least once. It wasn't their job, but they both had to do it. I wanted them to learn to do the hard stuff. I didn't want to make everything easy for them because then you get that self-entitled, I'm not doing that. I don't like it. Like, oh, they're both really hard workers. Yeah. Okay, I'm just trying to hit the see more, but I don't know why the see more. Shoot. There we go. Okay. This is from Ashley. My daughter had a meltdown that I said no to her toys 30 minutes before bedtime. Not a fan of the crying, but she needs to understand it's not the right time. Yeah. So in other words, you just held your own. You said no toys and she didn't get any. That's up to her to process not getting what she wants, when she wants, how she wants it. That's called life. We all have to accept stuff like that in life. Do you know, whenever I see someone, I live on a busy street downtown, and whenever I see someone fighting a parking ticket, I know exactly how they were raised. No accountability. No accountability at all. So they're doing the wrong thing. They obviously shouldn't have been parked there. I even hear them yelling. I was only in there for 2 minutes. Plus, sometimes I'll notice they were in there for 15 minutes in the line. It doesn't matter how long you're there. You still have to pay for parking if you're in a parking spot. You know what I mean? But they'll argue. Even when they're wrong, they'll argue it. I'm like, are you kidding me? It's just crazy to me. I'd be humiliated to act like that. How stupid. You look like an idiot when you do that. You're arguing when you're in the wrong. It just makes no sense at all to me. I'd be so humiliated. But yeah, I know exactly how they were raised. No accountability. They could argue their way out of anything no matter what they did. It's the same thing when someone commits a crime and then, or they get in trouble for something and then they got caught. And then they say, that's not who I am. My intentions weren't that. Yeah, it is who you are. And those were your intentions because you did it. Like it's all this lack of accountability. Lack of accountability. You don't want to raise kids like that because we don't want to have to deal with them when they're adults and they're out there in the world. They're a pain in the butt. 11-year-old son has big emotions, and when he gets upset, the whole family has to pay for it. Yeah, the squeaky wheel always gets the oil, right? Okay, just a sec. I'm trying to hit see more. Darn it. I can't get it to work for me. Pay for it to the point where sometimes he says he hates his life and has no value and there's no meaning to life. Yeah, okay. I would call that red zone. When they start talking like that, I can't answer that because that's red zone. You know what I'm talking about. When they start saying they hate life and there's no value and that's I don't answer that stuff. If you want my help, you have to hire me because that's a red flag to me. It doesn't mean that they're going to do anything, but as a coach, I can't give you a flippant answer to that. Once they start saying they hate themselves, they hate life, life's not worth living, all that kind of talk, you have to hire me for coaching to get an answer out of me because I need to assess the situation and we tread very carefully. And it's not about disciplining them. It's all about bonding and connecting with them and making them feel good about themselves. I said that earlier here, that leadership, I teach leadership. It's about making them feel good about themselves, not you. They will feel good about you, but that's not your goal in this parenting thing. When I teach leadership parenting, and I just invented that name. I don't know what, but anyway, I always think of it as leadership because the focus is on making them feel good about themselves. When you're the cause of that, they're going to treat you like gold. So everything else takes care of itself. So yeah, if you want me to help you with that, you'd have to hire me. Check out my coaching if you're interested. Okay, you said we don't talk about the bad behavior, but what if they ask about it? Okay, you're going to have to give me an example because some things we do talk about bad behavior. Like obviously if it's on the board or it's something you have to address, but a tantrum, we don't discuss tantrums or whining. Both of those are different. We don't discuss those. We just ignore that. Unless they're 3 and over, you can say, if you ask like this, I won't even answer you. I want that. But if you say, may I please have, the answer may still be no, but I will answer you. So you teach them how to talk nicely, but tantrums, you just completely ignore that. So I don't consider whining and tantrums behavior. Yeah, I don't consider it behavior. So I don't think I've ever said we ignore bad behavior. I wouldn't have said that because I don't consider tantrums and whining behavior. It's a loss of control or a habit. But what I do often say is you ignore the crazy and reward the calm. Whining and tantrums are in the crazy zone. Yeah. Yeah, if you've got an 11-year-old saying there's no meaning to life, you want to work on that. I wouldn't let that slide. I'm not trying to give you a warning, but as a coach, I have to tell you, I would look into that. I'd look into that. Might be nothing, might not be. Give me an example, Carol Ann, about bad behavior. What if they ask about? I want to know what exactly you're talking about. Okay, 3-year-old whining over everything, and if I try to ignore it, she will scream so loud that the moon can hear. Well, you've trained her to do that because she would only be doing that if it works. So, yeah, whining. So then she has basically having a tantrum, right? So yeah, as soon as she talks nice, you got to dive on that and say, pardon me, but the rest of it, I would still ignore if she's whining and screaming. I just would. There's no point. There's nothing you can say or do that's going to stop that. Let her carry on. Let her go in the crazy zone, and just you stay in the sane zone. I always say they're not listening to you anyway, they're watching you. So if you stay completely calm and she learns that doesn't work, and then she talks nicely and you actually answer her and look at her, then she'll eventually learn. It's going to be difficult in the short term, but yeah. Nothing worthwhile is easy. Toddler screams through every tea time. It makes family meals tea. Well, you must be Australian, right? Tea is dinner in Australia. I lived in Australia for 20 years. So it makes family meals stressful and has become a right picky eater. I don't know what's going on there. Like, why are they screaming through dinner? Why are they screaming through dinner? Have you feed them too much before dinner and they're not hungry? So yeah, I don't know quite why they're doing that. Like, do they not want to sit there? Are they in a high chair? There's a whole bunch of variables. I'd have to ask a lot of questions. 2.5-year-old has been pulling her hair out in tantrums. How to respond to this? Just physically restrain her. Whenever they get violent, you can check out my toddler tantrum busting course if you're interested. It goes in great detail about tantrums. But yeah, if they get violent, they hurt themselves, hurt someone else, or damage property, you physically restrain them. You say a very quiet, gentle no, and you physically restrain her from pulling her hair. You might have to hold on to her for a few seconds or a minute and then let go. If she goes for it again, you say no and hold her again. She'll eventually learn. You know, toddlers are crazy. They don't make any sense. Let me just read my top 5 tips for parenting toddlers. Number one is you child-proof your home so you never have to say no. Number 2 is you set up a toy rotation system so they're never bored. Number 3 is you connect with them and play with them in their world, not your world. You don't go to the nail salon with the 3-year-old to connect with them, or 2.5-year-old, whatever. You go to the park and roll down the hill with them. Number 4 is how you discipline a toddler in their world. Once again, they're not about words. These mini therapy sessions discussing big emotions and big feelings, that's garbage. That was invented to feed the mom's needs, not the toddler. They're about actions. So you use consistent corrective actions because they learn through repetition. Might take 50 or 100 times, but they'll eventually learn because they learn through repetition. And number 5 is don't try and figure them out. They're not figure-outable. Toddlers are crazy. Well, it's just they haven't developed sanity yet. They've got one marble and some tumbleweed floating around in there. They're cute as a button, but they're all feet, no brains. They're just forming. They're brand new, fresh human beings. Imagine if you've only been in the world for 2 years, and for one of those years, you were a potato laying on a mattress. Like, they just haven't formed yet. So the toddlers are never the problem. It's always the parents' expectations of them that's the problem. Is they're just forming. They're brand new, fresh human beings. They're just forming. This might be normal to some of them, smearing poop on the wall. They don't all do it, but some of them will. How do you figure that out? Like, they're just forming. Welsh. Oh, tea time there too. Yeah. In England, I guess it would be. But yeah, tea is, I remember when I first moved to Australia, there was so many things that were different. They'd say, oh, it's tea time. I think, well, I don't really feel like tea. It's just another one that was really funny. When I first had my baby there, it was in Sydney at the time, and my first child, and older woman said, can I nurse your baby? Well, that means to hold. And in North America, it means to breastfeed. And I felt like saying, well, she was like 70 years old. Well, if those dried up old boobs maybe have some milk, I guess. My gut reaction was to be funny, but I didn't know what she meant. You nurse my baby? How creepy are you? But anyway, it means to hold. There was a whole bunch of stuff like that I had to learn. I was there for about 20 years. Plus, I spent all those about 20 years in Australia. I never had one North American friend for 20 years. Isn't that weird? You'd think I would have, but I never searched them out. So it was all my friends were Australian, like Kiwis, Aussies, or Poms, English. It was weird. I loved Australia. Okay. Child is 3. He's not in a high chair. He tells me he doesn't like anything I cook him, even when I cook him. Okay. He has very poor appetite and eats very little. Okay. Just set up a mealtime routine. Use the behavior board and say, follow mealtime routine. And the routine is that he has to sit in his chair. There's no toys, no screens or anything. He has to sit there. And if he doesn't, then there's a consequence. Check it out. It tells you how to do the behavior board. Just check that out. I will have a mealtime battles course coming out. I've got 2 new courses coming out, hopefully in January sometime. One of them will be mealtime battles. The other one is school morning routine. That's a really popular one with parents. Okay. And just because he doesn't have an appetite doesn't mean he can't sit there and be polite. We used to have fun. That was when we all chatted and had fun. That dinner time was great. That was our fun connecting time. We were all in the same spot. There was no screens, nothing. We were just all sitting around chatting. So you want that to be a positive. What would be an appropriate consequence for an almost 3-year-old being too rough for a 1-year-old sibling? Okay, so if he's almost 3, he can probably go on the behavior board if he's just like a couple weeks away or something. That's when they can stop and think before they act. Anyway, and it will take a while. He's not going to do that right away. But also, you've got to watch them because you want to supervise and keep that little one safe. So put down no hurting your little brother or sister, okay? So every time he does, then that little one gets to play with his favorite toy for maybe 10 minutes. And you play with the little one, and the older one can't be included. So you be mean to them. Now you're going to be nice and let them play with your favorite toy for 10 minutes. Something like that. Anyway, check it out. Behavior board's free. And if it's a 3-year-old, 3 to 12-year-old is when you're at the height of your leadership skills. They want to please you because when you're a good leader, they just want to please you. You don't want teenagers to be like that, and toddlers aren't there yet. So 3 to 12 years old, even though their age is vastly different, your parenting style is pretty much the same because they want to please you. You're the leader. So you might want to check it. That's the boot camp course. You might want to check that one out too. Might be helpful because it goes into mealtime stuff. It's got a whole bunch of stuff in there. And what I've done is if you're in crisis or dealing with red zone stuff, really difficult stuff, that's not that course, obviously. You're going to have to hire me for coaching for that. A lot of people have doubled up. They bought the course, the boot camp course, and they also wanted coaching. They want me to go along with them, and that's fine too. But yeah, I would strongly recommend if it's anything really next level, coaching. The course has a lot in it, but it's more just the stuff that most people deal with. 2-year-old's very picky and refuses any foods, doesn't matter. Okay. So what I did, I can't discuss nutrition on here because I'm not a nutritionist or a doctor, but what I will tell you is what I did with my kids. My kids were both pretty fussy, especially my son. He was the older one. And but I made everything from scratch, and I only had healthy food in the house. So they knew if they didn't eat their broccoli, there was no ice cream waiting for them in the fridge. They just never got all that junk. So and I made everything from scratch. So I would puree spinach and seeds and nuts and throw it into everything. Everything I made, all my cakes and muffins and pancakes, everything tasted a little bit different than it tasted everywhere else. My son, he was, I don't know how old anyway, he came home and he goes, Mom, he said their pizza was really weird. The sauce was red because mine was brown because it had pureed spinach in it. So I got real sneaky. I could hide healthy stuff in anything because I made everything from scratch. All my pizza dough, my pizza sauce, I made everything from scratch. So yeah, and I hate cooking, by the way, but it was torture. Just because I love cleaning, but I hate cooking. Cooking's so messy. Anyway, hi there. Just wanted to say thank you for all your wonderful advice. We went as a family at the restaurant. I have my 6 kids, 10 through, what? I have my 6 kids, 10 through 7 months old, 7 weeks old. And when we came into the restaurant, we had the look of despair from the waitresses as if it was going to be a disaster because of walking in with the kids. Well, yeah, behold, behave. They were not louder than the other. And I had a really nice comment from the owner of the restaurant telling me how, wow, you must be doing a great job because your kids are really well behaved. She said she only had 2. She couldn't go out in the restaurant. I looked at her and said, thank you. I'm working hard as a mom to bring up my kids to be decent human beings in public. Not always easy, kids, but really proud of myself for being a leader. Good for you. Yeah, that's work, though, isn't it? Anyone can do this, but you have to put in the work. Getting respect is hard work. Maintaining it's a piece of cake right through the teen years. But getting it is hard work. Isn't it worth it? Put the hard work in now. Okay. I'm just going to look on my YouTube. I'm getting more people turning up on YouTube now too. All my lives are saved on YouTube, by the way. Okay, good question. This is what I get the most flack on whenever I see ignoring tantrums. Tantrums you ignore, from Leslie, but how do you usually respond to a child's emotions outside of tantrums? Does it differ between ages, toddler to older kid? Example, like a child says they feel sad. A tantrum you always ignore. That's not an emotion. It's a loss of control at not getting what they want. That's all it is. So there's no need to address a tantrum. But the other times when they say they feel sad, you say, we all feel sad sometimes. What makes you feel sad? And then talk about what makes you feel sad, and they can talk about. So yeah, you do discuss all that stuff outside of it. Here's the thing though. When you're a really good leader and you're very calm when you're disciplining and you're crazy fun the rest of the time, they don't tend to have emotions up and down. They tend to be they feel safe. They feel it's just different. So that tends to calm them down. They tend to be happy. They tend to have a lot of pride, high self-esteem. It's your leadership. You lead, they will follow. It makes them feel safe. So, ouch. Oh, geez, I worked out too hard at the gym this morning. That hurt. Scratching my back hurt. Anyway, okay. So yeah, being a leader calms your kids down. Whenever people say their emotions are all over the place, I say, how's your leadership? Well, I'm not a leader. That's why. They don't feel safe. Um, I could tell you a whole bunch of stories, but anyway, if when you're not a leader for your children at home, they're going to be very vulnerable out there in the world. They're going to be very susceptible to peer pressure, bullying, the drug dealer on the corner, the internet, the Kardashians. They're going to search a leader somewhere else because they need it. Children need, crave, and want leadership. So you want to be the leader. And leaders bring out the best in them. Leaders make them like themselves. It's not about, you don't want obedient soldiers here. You want children who have high self-esteem. They have a voice too. They're confident and they're nice kids. They're easy to be around. That's your goal. It's not obedient little soldiers. That's the old way. That's the old authority figure. I don't do any of that. Will behavior board work with a 3.5-year-old son that has autism? Not necessarily. Autism is a specialty. I only deal with that during coaching one-on-one with me if you're interested, because they're all so completely different. And it's never just one session, because we throw mud at the wall and then the next session we see what's stuck. And I need to know what did work in the past, what is working, what, all that. I have to assess the situation before moving forward. So no, it's more of a specialty. But ADHD, that's where I learned all this. That's not a specialty at all. That just means they're just a little bit maybe more challenging. So those are all the kids I worked with. So by the time I had my own kids and they didn't have ADHD or anything, piece of cake. Like, I couldn't believe it. So I learned all this through working with kids with all sorts of behavioral issues. Okay. 15-month-old girl hits her head on the ground. Yeah, they're going to do crazy stuff like that. They don't understand concussions, hospitals, brain bleeds, and all that stuff. Anyway, so what you do is you physically restrain her if you know she's going to be banging her head. You just got to be right there and physically prevent that. Or if it's that bad, you can put a foam helmet on her and she'll connect the dots eventually. Wait a minute, when I bang my head, I get a foam helmet put on my head. Maybe I'll stop banging my head. They don't really think it through, but they learn through repetition. And they're all about consistent corrective actions when they're toddlers. Toddlers are under the age of 3. And they're not about words. All these mini therapy sessions that are so popular right now, let's discuss all your big emotions and big feelings. That's garbage. That's just invented to make the mom feel good about herself. It has nothing to do with toddlers. They're about actions, not words. 2-year-old does not need a therapy session. Oh, that's what I'm up against. You know, one of my least favorite things is that get down on their level and say, use your words. Who invented that piece of garbage? Use it. They are. Tantrums, hitting their head. They are using their words. What you're saying is, find your inner adult. Be more like me. It's very patronizing. Who on earth came up with that one? Use your words. Give me a break. I wish I had more tact. I have none. Whatever I'm thinking flies out. Tips on becoming a leader for my 5-year-old. Check out my behavior board. It's just the start. Teaches you how to start doing this. Or you can hire me. Or my course is for 3 to 12-year-olds. That is my boot camp course, and it teaches you, it's all about you and your leadership. 5 weeks. It's all paced out. Start just slow. I don't start hard. I start real slow and easy. So that took me years to figure that out. Like, I've been coaching for 17 years now. I took all that experience to trying to figure out how to pace that course. And I had a test group of parents going through that with me. And they agreed. They said, yep, that was good, the way it was all paced out. So it's all paced out to make it doable. Because if I threw everything at you, like if I go in, I deal with everything in day 1. But I'm level 10 with what I teach. When you're learning how to do this, it's level 1, then level 2. Anyway. And you got to be willing to go through the storms. If you're afraid of your kids' fit scenes and tantrums, they are in charge and they know it. Guaranteed. If you're afraid of your children, they're in charge. Looks like that kid who said to me, I tell this every day, but it just bears repeating every single day. This kid I worked with, he didn't know about me. He hadn't met me yet. And I was asked to work with him. And he was 8. I think he was 8. And he was a handful. And obviously this used to work at home with his parents, I'm assuming. He said to me, if I don't get what I want, I'm going to have a fit. And he said it just like that. I looked at him and I said, bring it on. And he never did. He went like this, like, ooh. She knows what she's doing, so he never had a fit. Not saying that's going to work every time, but yeah, you can't be afraid of them. Behind every fit scene or a tantrum is a lesson. I bring it on, like, come on, that's my opportunity to exercise my leadership. Tantrums are opportunities for me. That's the way I view them. It's an opportunity for children to learn that they're not going to get what they want and when they want and how they want it all the time. If I say no, it means no. And I just follow through. Okay. Okay. So that again was talking about feelings with the child who feels left out from friends playing. Always be relatable. Say, I remember when I was your age, that happened to me. It happens to everybody sometimes. It's the feelings of isolation is the worst part when they think they're the only ones who've ever been bullied or left out. No, this stuff happens to most people. So it's the feeling that they're unique and they're just beneath everybody else that only has ever happened to them. So be relatable. Talk about, even if it didn't happen to you with younger children, lie and say it did. It did. It just really, it happened to you. Oh yes, yes, it happened to me too. It happens to everybody. So yeah. Anyway, I'm going to move on now. I'm going to go to Instagram, but I'm staying on YouTube. So the YouTube is where all my live, the whole hour and a half I do on YouTube. But I move from Facebook, then I go to Instagram, then I go to TikTok. If you want to join me on Instagram now, you're welcome to do so. It's Bratbusters Parenting. Thanks so much for joining me. And check the link above if you want to get my free behavior board, buy one of my mini toddler courses or my big boot camp course, 3 to 12 years old, or you can hire me for coaching. Okay, I'll talk to you on, where am I going? Instagram. Sorry, YouTube, I'm just moving over now. I'm getting more people on YouTube. That's wonderful. I've been doing these now on TikTok for about a year and a half every day. My favorite thing in my business is talking to parents, so I love doing these lives. And I'm on Instagram now. It's just popping up here. They're just letting people know. It's really weird on Instagram. Everyone turns up right away. People filter in all the other platforms, but like they just turn up like that on Instagram. It's really weird. It's the way obviously Instagram sends the message out that I'm doing a live. I'm talking to YouTube, by the way. I was just saying that on here, like there's like 100 people on here. Like within 15 seconds, 103 people. Only Instagram does that. The other platforms, everyone kind of filters in slowly. But on here, everyone turns up right away. It's really bizarre. Okay, so let's get going with your parenting questions. My name's Lisa. I'm a parenting coach. If you go in the link or in my bio or description or whatever it's called, you can get my free behavior board, buy one of my mini toddler courses or my big boot camp course, or you can hire me for coaching. Okay, so let's get going with your parenting questions. My son is saying bad words like the S word and the F word. How can I stop this? I need his age. How old is he? I'll try and keep an eye out. Camu digit. And he's swearing, so I'll try and keep that in mind. How to stop a 5-year-old from cursing? Oh, 5, same thing. It's the same thing. If he's 3 and over. If they're 3 and over, put on the behavior board. Oh, someone's out in the hall with their dog, or it might be a little kid. Anyway, put on the behavior board, which is free. Just go on the link above and you put down no bad words. And when they do, there's a consequence. Everything that you want to teach children through consequences. That's how we all learn. That's why we pay our rent. That's why we pay our taxes. That's why we pay for our groceries instead of walking out without them. We don't want to go to jail. We don't want to be kicked out of our home. Life is full of consequences. The sooner you teach that to your children, it's a huge life skill. Teach them that everything they do, there's a consequence, good, bad, or ugly. I used to say to my kids, everything is your choice. Everything you do, there's a consequence. So, and I'll make sure of that because I'm your mom. Good, bad, or ugly, I'll make sure of it. So, yeah, teach them about consequences. For everything they do, there's a consequence. 5-year-old lies. What do I do? Put down no lying on the behavior board. I never put attitude on the behavior board, but I don't consider lying attitude. It's an action. So I put no lying. And I usually have a long answer to that. Should I go into it? Yeah. Okay. So how do you decide if they're lying? Let's say they're a really good liar, or do you know they're lying? Should I go on about this? Anyway, how you find out if they're lying is you say to them, oh, that's interesting. Can you please tell me exactly how that happened? And you make it look official. You're writing it down like you're a detective. Okay, and then that, and then an hour later, ask them to tell the same story again. If they're lying, they're going to, especially at 5, they're not going to be that smart. They're going to change it. They're going to improve it, supposedly. So if they're lying, then they will change the story. There'll be facts that are going to change. What was I going to say about that? So then you say, okay, I've decided that's a lie. And then even if they say, no, it isn't, say, well, it doesn't matter because I put down no lying. And then in brackets on the behavior board, put down, I will decide when you're lying. So that kind of covers that. And then there's just a consequence for lying. Don't go overboard with this stuff. Just check it out. Be business-like with that behavior board. When you're disciplining, it's all business. Calm, calm, calm. The rest of the time, be crazy, loud, fun, which should be 99% of the time. Okay. Not that you should be crazy, loud, fun, but the discipline should only be like 1% of parenting. Get it over and done with. The rest of the time, connect with them, or just keep it all calm and nice in the house. Like don't antagonize them. In other words, once you've handed out discipline, don't talk about it again. Just make it happen. Don't go on about it. Parents want to keep going on and on and on about it. They're feeding themselves because they feel like they have to rub it in with their kids. You shouldn't be doing that because it just makes them worse. Where you put your focus and your energy is what grows. So put your focus and your energy into the good kid. Deal with bad behavior, but then focus on the good kid. Some parents say there isn't a good kid in there. I said, well, use a microscope and find it. I've worked with troubled teenagers. I needed a telescope with some of those kids. Oh, God, I can't find anything good in there. So, and I used to say that to them too. So I use humor. That's my weapon with kids. I always say my weapon of choice was always humor. I know there's a good kid in there somewhere. I just can't find it. Go. Yeah, thanks, Lisa. You see, get them laughing, you get them on your side. Okay, my daughter's 4, doesn't listen to me. That just means she doesn't respect you. Set yourself up as a leader and she will respect you. It's just the way it goes. It's not her. She doesn't listen because you're not a leader. They don't listen to people who aren't leaders. They just don't. Why would they? So set yourself up as a leader and then she will listen. You lead, they will follow. Check out my boot camp course. That might be a good fit for you. It goes from 3 to 12 years old. So it teaches you it's all about you and your leadership skills. That's all. There you go. 3-year-old ignores everything I say. Same answer. It's your leadership. Work on your leader. You lead, they will follow. Children need, crave, and want a leader. When you're a good leader, they just want to please you. That's the way it works because they feel good about themselves. And make sure they have a voice too, by the way. They have to be able to tell you everything. That's kind of another whole spiel. But anyway. Like if I messed up, my kids were, especially my son, very quick to point it out. Mom, you were wrong there. I think there should be a consequence. I go, oh, fine, what do you want? So it was a mutual. You give respect to get it. I was very accountable. So that's why my kids were, because they saw me being very accountable. And their dad was too. But he was more the pleaser. I was the leader. They only need one leader in the family, so long as you're on the same page with the pleaser. And with my husband at the time, he used to say, well, when you're not around, they definitely push me around more. And I said, well, just say, do you want me to tell Mom? Worked like a charm. Do you want me to tell Mom? No, never mind. Because I was the leader. I never even did anything. It's just the leader. They just know that you'll take care of business. So you only need one leader in the family, but you have to defer to the leader. My son doesn't want to play with other toddlers. Thoughts? Well, don't try and figure them out. I'll read my top 5 tips for parenting toddlers. Okay, number 1 is childproof your home so you never have to say no, and I'll get to that point, yours. Number 2 is set up a toy rotation system so they're never bored. Number 3 is when you want to connect with your toddler, do so in their world. You don't take them to the nail salon to connect with them. You go to the park and roll down the hill with them. They just look at you differently when you enter their world. Number 4 is it's kind of the same thing. When you're disciplining them, you enter their world. They're all about actions. They're not about words. They don't want those trendy mini therapy sessions that are so trendy right now, discussing all their big emotions and big feelings. That's garbage. That was invented to feed the mom's needs, to make her feel better, but they're not about the toddler. The toddlers need consistent corrective actions. That is their world. And number 5 is for you. Stop trying to figure them out. They're not figure-outable. They go through stage after stage. They might even go like this and smear poop on the wall. For some toddlers, that makes sense. Or they're not about sense yet. I always call them crazy, but it's just that they haven't developed sanity yet. They're just forming. They're brand new, fresh human beings. Don't try and figure them out. 10-month-old has tantrums. Yeah, they're born with them. They're either born with that tendency or they're not. My son had them. My daughter never had one. I never had one. But as adults, we don't have tempers either. My son is more inclined to have a temper, but they learn how to manage it. But yeah, it's a temperament is what it is. That's why they call it temper tantrums. It's a temperament. You're born with it. There are 4 annoying traits that you're either born with or you're not. One is tantrums, so it means you've got a temper. The other one is climbing. The other one is running, so they take off without looking behind. And often climbers are runners too, because they both have no fear. And the other one is aggressiveness. They're either going to hit or they're never going to hit. Okay, so those are 4 things. It's not your fault when they're born with those things to do those things, but usually throughout the toddler years, maybe 3 to 3.5, those things should be petering out by that time because you're learning how to deal with it. Is this going to be available later on? Can you record it? It's all recorded on YouTube. All of my lives are saved on YouTube. It's Bratbusters Parenting on there. Someone said, I love your hair and beanie look. I read that out because it was a compliment. It was really sweet. This is my gym. I wear this at the gym. Keeps all my hair out of the way. But thank you. That's very sweet. I'm 63 years old. And I kind of feel a little bit self-conscious with pigtails, but it is so good for the gym. And when I'm laying on my back doing sit-ups, I just go like that and cross them over. So it's like they choke me. It's just a really good hairstyle for the gym. And it's cold out. Okay. Okay. My almost 3-year-old in January, so they're almost 3, struggles with transitions. That's often when they do have tantrums. We love to go to the playground, but leaving is brutal because I always have to carry him. Yeah, I had to do that with my son for a while too. But if you get good at ignoring tantrums, then that tends to not happen as much. So my son's second to last tantrum was when he was 3, and I think he had another one at 3.5, and that was his very last tantrum that I remember anyway. But yeah, so just get good at ignoring tantrums. I got a ton of videos on tantrums, so you might want to check those out. And I also have a course called Tantrum Busting. So that might be for you. It's one of my mini toddler courses, or you can check out my big boot camp course that covers all that stuff in there. Not so much the toddler stuff because it goes from 3 to 12, but it certainly talks about tantrums a lot. So anyway, advice on tattletale. Yeah, I do actually. My 2 girls, 10 and 5, are very bossy. They try to control each other constantly. Okay, I would say I'd put on the behavior board, no tattling, and I'll decide when that is. And say if it's not life and death, I don't want to hear about it. But also check out, it's often the one, like parents often get this wrong. They judge it wrong. Oh, she's always trying to get the other one in trouble. Maybe she actually is a victim and the other one's bullying her. Really assess the situation. Why are they trying to get each other in trouble? Like, figure it out. There's usually one of them is usually more of a bully than the other, and that's why they tattle. If they're doing it for attention, here's how you get siblings to like each other and to get along better. You never do one-on-one time with them. When they're fighting all the time and at each other, you don't do one-on-one time with your kids. That builds resentment. It's the exact. A lot of parents say, "Well, I don't know why they're so jealous of each other. I do a lot of one-on-one time." That's why, because they see they get resentful, right? They forget that you just spent an hour with them. Now you're spending an hour with the other one. They just end up hating the other kid because they're getting your one-on-one attention, right? They always see the grass always greener. You just seem to enjoy that other kid more than me. It's just the way they are, okay? So what you do is everything you do with them while you're getting them to get along better, everything you do with them, you do as a group. And usually make a fool out of yourself. You always play to the weakest link. You play to the youngest kid, whatever they can do really well. And then you just play in their world and do silly stuff so that you look like an idiot. It's very humbling. I was very good at that. I always looked like an idiot. I was always jumping around with my kids and doing things that they were always better at. And then they laughed at me together. Look at mom, and they'd laugh. They were 5 years apart, a boy and a girl. They had nothing in common but laughing at mom. So yeah, it's very bonding. Like making a fool of yourself in front of your kids. It's very bonding for them. My 1.5-year-old only wants dad. It's hard for everyone. That's okay. They're going to go through stage after stage after stage. But what you can do is just dad say, that's it. I'm going to go the bathroom or whatever, and just lock a door and go in there so he has to deal with other people. Sometimes it might be a control thing. It's not that he wants dad. It's just he likes controlling. He likes the fact that you all cater. Okay, dad, you have to deal with him now. He doesn't want me. He only wants you. I'd say, well, you're getting me. Like if my kids had ever done that, I would have said, well, you're getting me. Dad's in the bathroom. So yeah, I'm all you got right now. Just take control of that one. They'll grow out of it. Okay, so I forget. I'm kind of new on the Instagram lives here, and I forget that it doesn't scroll for me, so I have to, and I try to get to the more recent comments because people might have already left, right? Yeah, I don't let anyone in on my lives. I only did it once. I didn't know how to do lives. I was brand new. About 1.5 years ago, I was doing a TikTok live, and someone said, oh, can I come in on the live? And it was an invite thing. So I let them in, and then they just pitched their business on I got a big audience over there too. They wanted my audience. I was stupid. I didn't know that. So I'm not saying you're going to do that, but I have not let anyone in on my lives. I treasure this time like this. I'm here to add value. I'm not here to give you to someone pitching their wares. Like, I thought that was really rude. I got rid of them like that. You're out of here. So this is interesting. Advice on gentle quitting breastfeeding. She is 18 months. I don't even know what that means. Gentle quitting breastfeeding. I don't know what that means. What I did with my daughter, my son weaned himself. He was 10 months old. He used to take my nipple with him, and he was always looking around. He loved it when I went to the bottle. I think I expressed initially, and then I just gave him normal formula. But anyway, so he loved the bottle. Then he could look around all he wanted. So he loved it. He was 10 months old. My daughter, she would have stayed on the boob till she was 10 probably. I mean, she liked the bonding part of it. She loved being cuddled. Anyway, so what I did with her was I wore different clothes and I made sure she couldn't get access to my boobs. And I hardly ever sat down. And I made sure I did it when we were on holidays so that her dad was around. So I was just always up. I wasn't talking about it. I just said, well, no more milk. Here's your, and I gave her I bought a brand new sippy cup and I put milk in I don't know what I did. But anyway, so basically I made my boobs inaccessible and I made sure I never sat down. I was always up and walking around and it was no problem. She didn't like it. But she wasn't a tantruming type. So yeah, she just sort of, she kept looking at me with her chin quivering, but I just had to stay strong. No, I just did it all in one go. My wife and I just bought your course for troubled sleepers using your plan tonight. Good luck with that. It's often, I shouldn't say that. Oh, it'll go really well. But yeah, if it is a really bad night, the worse the night that you have, like the worse it is, usually the better the result. So, because the kids learn, hey, you mean business. That's my bedtime battles course they're talking about. So good luck with that. 20-month-old daughter nags. And oh, by the way, if I don't get to all your emails and everything, I'm really busy and I do my best to get to emails. I pick and choose. If I've got existing clients I'm working with, they always come first because they're paying clients, or people who buy courses, they're always first. If you're going to send me parenting questions, just general, you just want my free advice on email, I don't even answer those. I can't do that. This is where I do all my free coaching or I answer questions for free on here. Yeah. But anyway, just letting you know, if you don't hear from me, that's why. I would spend all day doing that if I did. My 17-month-old says no to everything. Do I just continue with the instruction I've given to him? I don't know what instruction you're giving a 17-month-old. I say something once, and then if they don't do it, I just pick them up and it's happening. Come on, we're going to go have dinner now. If they say no, I go and pick them up and put them in the high chair. I only say something once. And they just learn. They kind of just learn. When mom says something, it's going to happen anyway, so they don't tend to fight it. There's no pushback, really. The only thing that was pushback was my son, was the transitions. If he was at the park having fun and we had to go, he would have a tantrum. So yeah, and I just had to pick him up and cart him away. Thank you. You hit it on the head, and I've been so blind. I'm stepmom, and their bio mom consistently splits them up and shows clear favoritism. Okay, there you go. That's the one I said when you've got kids who aren't getting along. Don't do the one-on-one time with them. They end up resenting it. No matter what you're doing with them, and then you do the exact same thing with the other, it always looks like you're having more fun with the other one. It builds hatred and resentment towards the kids. Only if they've got like that kind of relationship to start with. They might not care. Like I did one-on-one stuff with my kids. They were 5 years apart, a boy and a girl. You can't do everything together. But they already liked each other because we did so much together, and it was usually making fun of me because we did a lot of little silly kid stuff, and it's always stuff I couldn't do very well. So like, let's see how many somersaults we can do at the park. I'd do one and throw up. So, they were always beating me at everything. Oh, look at mom. She's all nauseous. I didn't actually throw up, but I didn't feel very well. What to do with a 4-year-old anxiety for the dark and go upstairs alone? Okay, well, that's really normal. I was terrified of the dark. And my mom used to say, there's nothing in the dark that isn't there in the light. And I used to say, yeah, there is for sure. I was terrified of the dark. But anyway, I just had a night light, and there's all sorts of things you can do. You can get the galaxy lights. And I would check on, with my kids, one of them went through that for a stage. I think it was my son, actually. Went through that for a stage, and I just said, okay, I'm going to check everywhere. I'm going to get a torch, or they're called torches in Australia. When I first heard that's a flashlight in Australia where I raised my kids, I was thinking like a stick with a flame on it. Is it a torch? And they said, oh, have you got a torch? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like caveman days? Anyway, so I'd get a flashlight and I'd say, okay, I'm looking in the closet. No, nobody here. And look, the window's all locked, and then I'd look underneath the bed and I'd show them. I said, nothing here, and they can't get past that door because I'm guarding it. So I kind of gave into it that way, and then I didn't say don't be silly, like my mom did. No, there's nothing there in the dark, there isn't there in the light. So yeah, just try that. Get the galaxy lights and sound machines, and it's all sorts of stuff you can put in their room. But I don't blame them. How can I stop a 4.5-year-old boy from hitting when angry? Note, the boy apologizes when calm. That doesn't mean anything. I don't care about the apology afterwards. I don't want him to hit in the first place. I would say no hitting, put it on the behavior board, or you can check out my boot camp course that addresses a lot of stuff between the age of 3 and 12. But just get the free behavior board if you want, and just put no hitting, and there's a consequence. He might say, well, I was mad. Say, yeah, that's no excuse for hitting. I get mad too. If a cop pulls me over, I might get mad. I'm not going to hit him. You know, like there's no excuse for that. So don't give them one. Just say there's a consequence. What course would you recommend for disciplining a 2-year-old? I just have many toddler courses, and they're very niche and very specific. I don't have a general course for toddlers because I might one day, but for now I don't. Same with teenagers, because there's so many exceptions to the rule. The reason why I don't have a toddler course is they're not figure outable. Just go with it. Go with the crazy for a while, for 2.5, or what is it, 35 months of just crazy time. That's just it. When they turn 36 months, you can start using the behavior board or the boot camp course. But yeah, they're not figure outable. So I don't have a general course for toddlers, but I have many niche ones. Bedtime battles, the potty training one, the tantrums, and the aggressive one. Toddlers who hit. That's when they hit outside of a tantrum. If they hit during a tantrum, that's the tantrum course. Because it's just different. Sorry, I have to skip ahead because a lot of questions have come in and I'm worried that those people might have left already, so I don't want to answer the older questions. 8-year-old is constantly pressing me at shower time, refusing to get in. Constantly pressing you. So you're, I don't know what you mean by that, constantly pressing me. You mean arguing? Is that what you mean at shower time? Doesn't want to get in? Okay, put it on the behavior board. Say follow bedtime routine. And one of the bedtime routines is showering. And then if they don't, there's a consequence. So you can still argue to get them in the shower, but if they weren't agreeable and amiable about getting in, you never discipline at night before bedtime, like at bedtime. Then say, we'll discuss it tomorrow morning. So then the next day you say, let's go to the behavior board. Remember, shower was not easy. You're supposed to just get in within 5 minutes of being asked to do so or something. And you didn't. So here's the consequence. So there has to be a consequence. That's how we all learn. We all learn to make good choices because if we make a bad one, there's a consequence. Why on earth are children any different? They're not. They got to learn. I used to say to my kids, if you're good, life is good. If you're bad, life ain't so good. I'll make sure of it because I'm your mom and that's my job. So in other words, I'll teach you how to make good choices. And that's what I did. So they did. And they learned. If they made a bad choice, they'd instantly go, oh, sorry, mom, how about no TV tonight? They discipline themselves. And I'd say, no, that's too much. Just brush my hair for 5 minutes because they hated doing it and I love having it done. Well, I just mentioned it. You said, what are some good examples of good punishments? My kids hated brushing my hair and I loved having it done. That would have been a consequence. They didn't act out, but if they did, or if they were running late or something, they would be brushing my hair. Something like that. So doing something nice for me that they hate doing that I love having done. My son was 12 and he kept me waiting or something. I can't remember what it was. He wasn't rude in any way, but he kept me waiting once. And so I said, okay, fine. You can have no PlayStation tonight, or you can give me a makeover for 30 minutes. He only did it once, but he chose the makeover. And I like to lay down when someone's doing that for me, giving me a makeover. And he said he felt like he was a serial killer. Oh, pretty girl, because I was like a corpse. Just we had a blast, and he never did it again. What can I do if all punishments doesn't work? You have to hire me, and there's always a way. So yeah, if you're struggling, you have to hire me. If you're next level, red zone, hire me. That's coaching. Or you can just keep asking stuff on here. But yeah, it's like you can pick and choose. That didn't work, but if you're not doing everything else too, like sometimes it's a whole package that you need, right? That's what the boot camp course is all about, and coaching covers everything too. Coaching is just specific, you and me talking, and I assess your situation, and then it's all personalized. Goes to school with dirty nails. Yeah, you're just gonna have to use the behavior board. How old are your kids now? Just curious. My daughter's 29, my son's 34. And they're both in 10-year-long relationships, and my son's got a little girl coming in a few days, little baby girl. So I'm very excited about that. But I don't discuss my adult children because they don't choose to be on here, so I don't drag them in. But yeah. What are good consequences for a 12-year-old boy? It's usually a chore, like empty the dishwasher or something like that. And there's always 2 consequences for kids. There's a positive action. If they won't do that, then there's a negative deprivation. There's only one consequence for parents. You're on that behavior board too. If you're not accountable, you're not a leader. You're a dictator. You have to be accountable. You give respect to get it. That's the old-fashioned authority style parenting. The parents were never accountable. And I'm not saying it's not a bad way to parent. Actually, you're raising good kids, but they tend to rebel and resent you in the teen years, but they come out the other end appreciating you. I teach leadership. There's no rebellion or no resentment. My son was 15 and he says, I could never rebel. He was kind of upset about it. He says, I could never rebel because you're too reasonable and easy to talk to. Ooh, that's a shame. So I teach leadership. You don't want any rebellion. But if you're that new fashion, trendy, pleaser style parent, you're a dish rag. They're going to wipe their feet all over you and never appreciate you. And you're going to raise self-entitled snowflakes with mental health issues because you're trying to pave the way, give them participation awards, make everything easy for them. Heaven forbid that they should have a tantrum and not be ignored, and then you also usually yell because the pleaser parent style doesn't work. So you end up yelling. Anyway, I've seen that. I saw that come in 30 years ago. I knew exactly where we were going. And I'm exaggerating slightly, but that's what I do. It's how I roll. Okay. Sorry, I'm flipping ahead in case those people have already left because there's a bunch of questions have come through. What time is it? Okay. Okay, since something in here I don't like. Mrs. Courtney, Michelle, Ashley, that's interesting. I don't know what that is. 2.5-year-old screams for everything I ignore. It's been months and no change. I praise when she is good. Just keep at it until it clicks. Why are you praising her when she's good? That's a reward chart kind of idea. A reward chart or praising her when she's good, it's almost like saying you're normally rotten, but if you should happen to be good, I'll praise you or give you a gold star. You see, it sends the wrong message. It looks like you're afraid of her. Oh, aren't you good today? Oh, you're such a good girl. I don't do that. I just made my kids had a fun life. We were crazy. We're always playing and having fun. That's how you reward. Just have a fun household. Play with your kids in their world. Do crazy stuff with your kids. But yeah, she's screaming 2.5. Well, she's only 2.5. She's just growing. Don't try and figure them out when they're that age. They're not figure outable. But yeah, don't get in that trap of praising everything they do. That's that self-entitlement that you're going to raise. And then they're going to have a boss. You didn't praise me today. All you did was turn up and work. What do you want? Like it raises that entitlement. And they just think anything they do needs praising. Also, they're difficult kids to raise. Entitled children are very difficult. So those parents are often yellers. So yeah, it's like you're trying to be this pleaser and be so loving. And then you yell because they're acting out and they don't respect you. They wipe their feet all over you. So yeah, I see that. This is what I'm up against in my business. I see this all the time. Oops, I just said. Okay, sorry, I'm gonna read someone on YouTube here because I don't usually look down at YouTube because it's just a different screen. So anyway, this is Shade Show Lola. Sorry, I know I messed that up. I want to answer this one because it's such an important question. I don't know how to play. What are some ideas I have? 1 and a 9-year-old. Okay, whatever their kids are doing, watch them and do it with them. Whatever they're doing, watch them and do it with them. Let them lead. When you're playing with kids, they're the leaders. A fun thing to do that I used to love doing with my kids was balloon tennis. We could do it any time. I always had balloons around the house, and then those flimsy little dollar store rackets, and the coffee table was the net, and we just played balloon tennis. That was a fun thing to do. Hold the 1-year-old and give them hold the racket with them, and you can play with the 9-year-old. Just silly stuff, not competitive. There's no winner or loser with any of those things, by the way. When you're playing with your kids and just having fun, don't make it about winning or losing. Make it about just silly fun. Does that make sense? Okay, so watch them play and then let them lead. I'll tell you a cute story. I was working with this mom, and when she yelled on the behavior board, her consequence was she had to play Lego with her son for 30 minutes. And I said, make sure that you overshoot. Like, in other words, if you're playing for 30 minutes, then make sure you go a little bit, the timer goes off and you say something like this, let's play for another 5 minutes, okay? Because they love that. Anyway, you know what she did? She turned up and she says, I didn't play for 30 or 35 minutes. I said, what do you mean? She goes, I played for 3.5 hours. She'd never played with her little boy before. Never. She read him books. She did all that kind of stuff, but there was always that separation. She was the adult and he was the kid. And she said she said, I couldn't believe the difference in him. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't tantruming. He crawled into her lap and they played for 3.5 hours together. And I said, let them lead the play. They're in charge of playtime. It's just a bonding experience. Anyway, and she loved it. She said he wasn't yelling or hitting or anything. And I said, well, yeah, that's because all of a sudden you're a leader. Leaders are, it's all about love and connecting and bonding. Okay, I got to go over to TikTok now. I did Facebook, then I do Instagram, then I do TikTok, a half hour on each, and I'm on YouTube for the whole 90 minutes. So anyway, if you go on the link above or in my description, you can get my free behavior board, buy one of my mini toddler courses, or buy my big boot camp course, or you can hire me for coaching. Otherwise, thanks for joining me. And now I'm going over to TikTok. It's Bratbusters Parenting over there if you want to join me. Sorry, YouTube, just bear with me here. I'm almost at 600,000 now on TikTok. So I'll be very excited. I don't know what I'm going to do for that. I'll probably do something when I hit 600. I haven't planned it out yet. Okay, welcome to my TikTok live. I was just on Instagram and I was on Facebook before, but I'm on YouTube the whole time. So if I start glitching here on TikTok, I didn't glitch yesterday, but the 4 days prior, it was glitching on the live. So I'm on YouTube though, Bratbusters Parenting. If it glitches on TikTok, go over to YouTube. So anyway, okay, so let's get going with your parenting questions. If you go to the link above, you can, I almost forgot, I say it all the time. Sometimes I forget I'm glitching. So that isn't TikTok, that's me, I glitched. So you might want to go over to YouTube. Anyway, so if you go to the link above, you can get my free behavior board, one of my mini toddler courses, my big boot camp course, or you can hire me for coaching. So let's get going with your parenting questions. And I'll do my best to, me and my 1-year-old watch a lot of YouTube videos. What do you think about toddlers watching TV? I don't have an opinion on that. That's a personal choice. I get asked stuff like that quite often. What do you think about co-sleeping? What do you think about Montessori school? What do you think about homeschooling? I don't have opinions on that. What do you think about religion and kids? That's personal choices. So leadership doesn't have anything to do with that stuff. So yeah, I honestly, I have my own personal opinions, but even that, it's just my own personal view on it. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong. And I stick with what I think is right and what is wrong. Like that's what I'm giving you advice based on that, not my opinion at all. The only time that I have to compromise my my coaching is when I deal with people from different countries that have very strict religious or cultural views. I have to take that into account. And I do have to compromise a lot of what I teach. But that's my challenge. I actually really enjoy that because, I've been doing this for so many years. It isn't a challenge for me usually anymore. But then that is having to deal with different cultures, and that I actually really enjoy it. Just a little bit of an extra challenge for me. And that's why my favorite age is teenagers, because those are the ones I have to think about, especially if they're depressed or something, that different level. But yeah, I like a challenge. Okay, parenting questions. Let's get going with that. Okay, someone asked on YouTube here, do you have any courses that would help with a 5-year-old on the autism spectrum with language delay? That's all coaching. That's a specialty. I don't discuss that anywhere but in coaching if you want to work with me. So, because they're all different. And it's not just one session, because we have to throw mud at the wall in the first session and then see what's stuck on subsequent sessions, because it's trial and error. Each child with autism is very different. They often have very different sensitivities and tendencies, and yeah, so that's just coaching if you want to work with me. Okay. Rebellious 2-year-old thinks he's funny. I'm going to read out. I read this every single day. If you've heard it, just bear with me. Toddlers. And by the way, he doesn't think it's funny. It's usually a testing laugh. So when they act out and they laugh, it's usually testing. There's a difference between a gut laugh and a testing laugh when they think they're pulling the wool over your eyes. Anyway, these are my top 5 tips for parenting toddlers. Number 1 is child-proof your home so you never have to say no. Number 2 is you set up a toy rotation system so they're never bored. Number 3 is you connect with them in their world. You go to the park and roll down the hill with them. You don't go to the nail salon with a toddler to connect with them. And then number 4 is very similar. You discipline in their world also, and they're all about actions. They're not about words. These mini therapy sessions that are so trendy right now are garbage. They were invented to make the mom feel good about herself. they are not for the toddler at all. Toddlers are all about actions, consistent corrective actions. They don't learn the first time or the first 10 or maybe even 50 times. Hopefully by 100 times they might learn, because it's repetition. You got to be consistent though. And then last one is stop trying to figure them out. They're not figure outable. Toddlers are brand new, fresh human beings. They've got one marble and some tumbleweed floating around in there. They're just forming. Okay, so don't try and figure them out. They're going to go through stage after stage after stage. So we can never change toddlers, but we can certainly control their environment. So that's why you do the child proofing and why you get the toy rotation system going. What do you do if your child gets hit by other kids? There's nothing you can do about that. I don't deal with other people's kids unless they're under my care. That's different. Then I would just say no hitting, and then I would, keep them apart from the fun, keep them with me for a period of time, and then test it out again. But if the other parents are there, I've actually dumped friends because of that. If they had kids that were hurting my kids, I didn't see those friends anymore. You don't tell other people how to parent. I never did. Here I am telling you, but you're soliciting my advice as a parenting coach. I never told friends or family how to parent. I've got my very first grandchild coming in a few days, and people have often asked me, are you going to give any advice to your kids about parenting? And if they ask for it, maybe, but they already know. They both said they're going to try and parent the way I did when they were younger. Certainly they said that. And but yeah, it's none of my business. None of my business. And I don't want to make my kids feel bad. So it's insulting them. When you try and tell them what to do, you're insulting what they're already doing. Why would I do that to my kids? Not my kids, it's their kids. My 3-year-old doesn't know how to walk, always running. It's not a question, is it? Yeah, they're just active. Congrats on the grandchild. Yeah, I'm not as excited as people think I should be for some reason, because I'm such a maternal person, but they're not my kids. I have to hand it back. I'll be at the hospital and my son's going to say, Mom, can I have my daughter back? And I'll be like, no. Like, you have to hand it back. How is that fun? I love parenting. No one took it off me. It was mine. I got to take them home. So I have to hand them back. How is that going to be as much fun as parenting? Anyway, I love the kid, but I don't want to hand it back. That's no good. Help, my teenager's so disrespectful. How to help her figure out, how do I help her figure out what's wrong? Oh God, you're going to hate me. You're blaming her for being disrespectful? Look in a mirror. Work on yourself. Work on yourself. You earn that respect. She's disrespectful because you're not a leader. That's why. Have you already left? You've probably already left. I'm not listening to her. Okay, I'm going to read out my top 3 tips for parenting teenagers. And by the way, when I used to work with delinquent teenagers, if they did something I didn't like, I used to say to them, well, that's my fault. I'm obviously not a good enough mentor. I'm missing something here. I'll get better. And they were shocked. I blamed myself for their actions. I took responsibility. So take responsibility, work on your leadership skills, okay? Yeah, I don't have a course on teenagers. If you want my personal help, you have to hire me for coaching. Anyway, these are my top 3 tips for parenting teenagers, which are my favorite age, by the way. When you're good at dealing with teenagers, they're the best. Okay, so number 1 is you listen to understand and show empathy. You don't listen to gather information to lecture with, or they will shut you out. If they want your advice, they'll ask for it. By the way, they already know it, okay? I call this silent listening. When you get good at it, they'll tell you everything right through the teen years. You don't always want to hear it, but they're going to tell you anyway. Okay, number 2 is you negotiate pretty much everything with teenagers. Not everything, but pretty much. Hey, I want your dirty clothes in the hamper from now on. What do you want from me? Let's start the negotiations, okay? Number 3 is don't sweat the small stuff. Don't micromanage a teenager. If you save your energy for the big stuff, if you even never have it, because you're gonna need it, okay? So don't sweat the small stuff. If they do something stupid and it's not a big deal, say something like this. Well, that was stupid. Wait till you hear what I did when I was your age. Like, it's okay to make mistakes. Be relatable. Say we all make mistakes. That's okay. We all learn. We just gotta learn from it. So yeah, don't blame her for that. Look in a mirror. You can only change yourself anyway. I blame myself. When I was working with delinquent teenagers, if they acted out, I blame myself. What am I missing here? And I only saw them for an hour a week, maybe 2 hours a week sometimes. So yeah, blame yourself. Thank you. I am respectful to her, but got lost somewhere. Yeah, if you want to hire me, we'd figure stuff out. It's hard work. Teenage stuff is just hard work. But that's my specialty. I started dealing with, in my business, I started dealing with teen crises. I still do it, but I don't advertise it. But they're my favorite age. Um, my 16-year-old dating a girl who doesn't have the values we do. How do I navigate their relationship? You don't. You let him navigate it. If you try and get involved, I've done that. I've tried to get involved in my teenagers' relationships. It didn't work. I thought I had such respect going, mutual respect. It didn't work. Yeah. So yeah, you don't. Not much you can do. They're just going to sneak around behind your back anyway. So yeah, not much you can do. Sorry about that. Certain things that you at 16, yeah, there's not much you can do. I don't want to go on about it, but I got a real story I could tell you. I don't want to tell it on here, but yeah, not about my kids, but another story. Anyway, is it normal for my 2-year-old to say sorry so much? He says sorry for every single mistake. Probably because it gets him off the hook. Like the word sorry means nothing to me. It's so overused. Oh, I killed your whole family. Sorry. And you're supposed to forgive them. Like, the word sorry is so overused. So yeah, just kind of like, okay, that's fine. But don't go, oh, you're so wonderful. There must be a payoff for that. You must be going overboard with. So they do something that you don't like. Then they say sorry. And then you go, that's okay. Yeah, that you're giving that word too much power, I'm guessing. By the way, this is kind of off topic, but there's 4 steps to a real apology. The word sorry is so overused these days, it's ridiculous. Anyway, so the 4 steps to apologize, and this is for adults too. Number 1 is say you're sorry just to start the ball rolling. I really don't care about it. That doesn't mean much to me. The word sorry doesn't mean anything. It's just an empty word to me. Anyway, say you're sorry. Number 2 is take full accountability. Say it was all my fault. Don't say, sorry, I did that, but if you hadn't done that, I wouldn't have had to. Like you're blaming the other person. So say you're sorry, take full accountability. Number 3 is really important. Say, what can I do to make it up to you? You make amends. No one ever does that. Sorry, I'm late. I never say, that's okay. I never say that. I say, oh, okay. And people always look kind of, well, you didn't even forgive me. I'm like, well, all you said was, sorry, I was late. Where's my free drink? Where's my movie ticket that you're going to pay for? You kept me waiting and then there's no making amends? Like, what are you talking about? That's ridiculous. Where's the amends? How are you going to make it up to me? Sorry, I'm late. And then, oh, you're not very forgiving. I've actually been attacked for not saying that's okay. Anyway, I don't have that friend anymore, obviously, because they're not accountable. Anyway, and the last one is don't keep doing it over and over again. If you keep doing the same crime over and over again, none of that meant anything. It's just empty, empty, empty. So, yeah. I know that was off topic, but I haven't talked about that in a long time, but it's 4 steps to a true apology. Any tips on getting a 12-month-old to stop throwing food and eat instead? Yep, the first meal or 2 are not going to go very well, but this is what you do. They throw food, you got to be fast with this so they connect the dots. You say no, throw it in the garbage, then hand feed them. And do that for the rest of that meal. They might not take another bite, might be a big tantrum at that point. That's okay. They can go without that one meal and they can have a snack a half hour later. It can be the same food, but you're going to feed it to them. Or you can give it to them as soon as they throw it. No, hand feed. No, hand feed. They'll catch on eventually, but they're only 1. They're going to go through stage after stage after stage. My 15-month-old constantly throws fits when she doesn't get her own way. How do I stop the fits without shouting or yelling? You don't, someone said ignore the tantrum. You don't stop the fits. You want that. That fit scene or a tantrum is their brain processing. They don't get what they want, when they want, and how they want it. They have to go through that. They don't all have tantrums, but if they do, if they're that way inclined, that is their process. Don't interrupt that. The only way to stop a tantrum is to give them what they want, when they want, and how they want it all the time. Are you going to do that? It'll just grow and grow and grow and get worse and worse and worse. So yeah, don't ever run away from a fit or a scene or a tantrum. That means they're in charge. If you're afraid of your children, they pick up on that energy. It's like that 8-year-old that I was working with. He didn't know who I was, so he said this to me. He said, he said to me, if you don't give me what I want, I'm going to have a fit. And he said it real snotty, like really. Imagine what kind of parenting he had. So I said to him, bring it on. And he went like this, and he never did. He thought, ooh, she knows what she's doing. So yeah, don't be afraid of it. Behind every scene is a lesson. That's the gold. I love it when kids have tantrums with me. When I lay down the law and a kid has a tantrum with me, it's like, great, this is my opportunity to exercise my leadership. They're opportunities. Tantrums are opportunities for you to exercise your leadership. You ignore tantrums. There's a very specific way of doing it. Check out my tantrum busting course. That's for toddlers. Or you can check out my big course, 3 to 12 years old. If they're still having tantrums at that age, yeah, it's covered in there. By the way, yelling and hitting kids, those are two very similar tactics. And the reason why a lot of people do it is they work in the short term. Most parents yell, by the way. A lot still spank, but most parents yell because if they're not in control, right, of themselves. So yelling and spanking work in the moment, but they backfire big time down the road. They build resentment and they backfire down the road. You already know that. So I teach everything else to do. The only reason, like I never yelled, the only reason that you do it is because you don't know what else to do, or you just temporarily lose it. Does that differ in public? No, the exact same parent, no matter where you are. If you're like a parent, people will say to me, my kids are great at home, but they're lousy when we go out. Well, that's because they know that you're not going to discipline them. You're a different parent. Consistency is important. My kids knew 100% exactly how I was going to react no matter where we were. I was mom no matter where we were. And I was proud of it too. If I was disciplining my kids, I was like, come around, people, watch and learn. Like I was proud of being a leader. Yeah. You can't be a different parent. Then you're inconsistent and they don't trust you. Yeah, someone said you got to be the same parent everywhere you go. Absolutely. 100%. My blank just turned 2 years old, has tantrums, but actively hits his head and or has tantrums, but actively, you mean doesn't have tantrums, but actively hits his head? Okay. I have two mini courses for toddlers. One is tantrums, one is toddlers who hit, etc. But yeah, they're different. If they're having tantrums and hitting themselves, that's a different course. But basically, you just intervene when they're getting violent and aggressive and they're hurting themselves or someone else or damaging property. You say no when you intervene and prevent the damage from happening. And then if they're that bad and they're banging, they're going to do stuff like that, right? They're just crazy when they're little. So get a foam helmet for them and connect the dots. Like say, okay, you hit your head, now you're going to get this on. They'll start connecting the helmet, which they hate, with banging their head, and they'll stop doing it. That's the idea. So they're not going to learn right away. It might take a week or two. They're not going to learn right away. Toddlers learn through repetition. Like they will eventually, like the first time they touch a hot oven, it'll hurt, but they're still going to touch it again. But they maybe the third or fourth time they might not. It's not that they thought it through so much, just something in their brain. It's a different way of learning. It's not reasoning. It's a knee-jerk reaction kind of learning. That's why you use actions, not words with toddlers. A lot of my clients are teachers, principals, and child psychologists. And it's not that they're struggling more than other people, but they're perfectionists. They want to get it right. And they identify parenting as a different role from their institution roles. Like I couldn't do what they do. They're very different relationships. So I specialize in parenting, which is personal. It's completely different. So anyway, but when I get a child psychologist as a client, they'll explain there's evidently a way of it's the way I explained it. They learn through repetition, and it's a knee-jerk reaction. They say it actually is that. They're not processing it by thinking it through. It's just they don't know why, but they know don't touch that hot oven because it's knee-jerk reaction because they've been burnt 10 times or whatever. So it actually is their brain just is different. By the time they hit about 3, especially 3 3/4, but about 3, they can start to stop and think before they act or reason things out. Doesn't mean they're going to do it, but they're starting to learn how to do that. That's why the behavior board starts at the age of 3. My 3-year-old is acting horrible at daycare, but we are not having those behaviors at home. There's 2 reasons for that. Either you cater to him at home, and he gets his own way, and school doesn't. So he acts out trying to train them the way he's trained you. There's either that, or there's something going on there that he doesn't like. Might not be anything big, just something he doesn't like. But think about it. Do you cater to him at home? School, daycare can't do that. They have 20, 30 kids. They can't cater to every kid. So yeah, are you the pleaser parent, catering to him? Trying to make his life easy, giving him whenever he wants something, then he goes to school and that doesn't happen. Or is something going on there that he doesn't like? It's usually the only 2 reasons. Could be something else, but that's the ones I see all the time. I like how you explained why you don't do timeouts. I hate timeout. I'm curious, what do you think about grounding? I don't like it. Should a consequence ever be prolonged like that? No, I don't like grounding. I also don't like curfews with teenagers. It doesn't mean they're out all night, but you negotiate each time, each night. It's a whole thing how you do that. But yeah, I don't like these big blanket statements of I'm in charge. I don't like that. And grounding, yeah, because then they're also gonna if they're grounded, they're gonna miss out on social time with friends. I never take that away. That's love. I don't take love away and social stuff away. Never. Even if they're grounded and they have media blackout for 24 hours and they already had a play date with a friend coming over to play games, I would let them play games with that friend. I would never take that away. But then you add those 3 hours onto the end of the 24 hours. So they still have 24-hour media blackout, but I never take away love or social stuff ever, or sports. Like I would never say, well, you can't go to sports today because no, I would never take any of that stuff away. I think that's mean. I think that's mean. And besides grounding, how's that working? Like if you're grounding kids, how's it working? Yeah, I can't stand it. I don't loathe it. Like I loathe timeout. I think timeout is mean. You go over there and you think about what you did. I don't even want to be around you. I think it's horrible. It's humiliating. And all they do is they sit in that corner and feel like crap. They're not thinking about what they did wrong. They're just sitting there feeling like a piece of garbage. I think it's mean. God, I exaggerate a lot, but I'm trying to get my point across. Okay, it's not torture, but I just really hate timeout. I've never done it, never will. I don't know what you mean. Teacher is always complaining about the hitting too much. There is a gap which I don't understand. I don't know. Well, I don't know either. If you want my help with something like that, where I have to assess the situation, I need a lot of information, you'd have to hire me. That might just be one session, actually. I have to assess the situation, and I need to ask a lot of questions. Plus, I want to assess what kind of parent you are. That helps me in great detail, know how to go forward. Did I say a great detail? I meant a great deal. I've said that. I say that quite often. I say that wrong. We never lecture teens. Why? They will shut you out. Do you want to be lectured? I don't want anyone lecturing me. Teenagers don't want to be lectured. Why would you lecture them? What about? What are you lecturing your teens about? Yeah. I discussed everything with my teenager, but it was more like, well, what do you think? Here's what I might have done. What do you think? It was, yeah. Yeah, I don't know what you're lecturing them about. Is it working? If it is, I might have to reassess my whole business. Is it working? Yeah, you might just have a really easy teenager. You can do everything wrong. If you've got like I could have done everything wrong with my daughter. She was the easiest kid in the whole world. My son was more normal. My daughter was, I swear to God, she never cried or anything. She was the easiest kid in the whole world. So amiable. Like I didn't allow my kids to touch anything in stores. And they were usually in a pram or in a shopping cart. But if we didn't have one, we just ran in quickly. And she was like 2. She knew she couldn't touch anything. She did lobster claws. She wanted to touch. So she'd just go like this, wouldn't touch anything. Easiest kid in the world. People would laugh at her. I'd say, what's she doing? And they said, she knows she's not allowed to touch. So she just goes like this. They all thought that was amazing. Easiest kid in the world. But what I did for her was I gave her a lot of confidence. She's she knows who she is. So I gave her a lot of confidence, but she was easy. So yeah, not all kids. You don't need to learn all this stuff with all kids. Most of them you do. Toddlers with newborns, supervise. I had a friend who had a son just like mine. We used to get together for play groups. They were both 2-year-old little boys, very easy little boys. Like they never hit or anything. They were very gentle, sensitive little boys. So that's why we got together so often, because our sons were both very gentle. They never hit or anything. Anyway, she had this gorgeous brand new baby girl, and her gentle, sweet little boy, we were shocked at this. He went in behind her back, took the baby out of the bassinet and threw it on the floor. He didn't understand concussions and death. And the baby was fine, but bruised, but fine. All he's thinking was that loud thing has taken my mommy and daddy away from me. And he just wanted to get rid of it. So yeah, supervise. My daughter is 6. Anytime I say no, she can't accept it and turns into crying for several minutes. Yeah, check out my boot camp course. She's only doing that because there's a payoff. Past the age of 3 3/4 to 4 years old, they only do what works. It says to me that it works. It must upset you in some way, and or else something's missing in her life. You're not meeting her needs potentially. So yeah, check out my boot camp course. It talks a lot about connecting. Most of what I teach is about connecting with your kids. Discipline is a tiny part of it. It's more about connecting with your kids, bonding with them. So yeah, check it out. My 16-year-old don't spend any time with family. Yeah, that's really normal. They're separating from their family. But my son did that. He was 15, and all of a sudden, I'll never forget this. He was 14, and every single morning I'd come down and I'd say, "Morning, sweetie," and he'd go, "Morning, mom," with a cracking voice. We'd laugh at his voice cracking. It was all great. That's how we started every morning. He turned 15, and I swear to God, this is what happened. It was like a whole different person. I said, "Morning, sweetie." He turned around, and he went, "Morning, mom." His facial expression was different. His voice had dropped. He was 6 feet tall. It was like overnight he turned into a man. And he wasn't my girlfriend anymore. We used to giggle and talk about everything all the time. He just started turning into a man. Anyway, I thought, how am I going to bond with this kid? He liked heavy metal music and PlayStation games. I hate all that stuff. So anyway, you know what I did? I became furniture. I would go down the rec room when he was playing his games, and I'd just bring a magazine. I wouldn't say a word. I'd sit beside him on the couch like furniture. And I'd just go through my magazine, and I'd look up every so often and watch him play. Next thing you know, as time went on, we're talking about the game. Next thing you know, he's handing me a controller. Next thing you know, we're having fun playing together. He's showing me how to play, being really patient with me. We just had a blast. So you wait till you're invited into their world, but you don't dive on them. You just sit around, be furniture, and just show an interest in their world, but wait till you're invited into it. Anyway, then he started making me playlists for his music that I hated. Turns out I ended up loving a whole bunch of it. He made a playlist. I'm only going to say this once. NWA's Greatest Hits became my favorite album. Look it up. I had to roll up all the windows in my minivan to play it. It's vulgar, but I just like the beats. Anyway, so yeah, open your mind, open your world, and wait till you're invited into their world. That's how you connect. It's never going to be the same. Like my son and I were never girlfriends again like we were when he was 14 and under. He became a man. Once he said to me, he says, "Mom," he said, "when you say to a man," this is when he was a man, like he's 34 now, but he said, "Mom, when you say to me, 'What are you thinking?' and I say nothing," he said, "I'm not lying." He says, "I'm not thinking about anything." He says, "That's the difference between men and women. We're always thinking, us women. Men aren't. They can shut." And I remember thinking, I didn't understand men till I raised one because he taught me about them. So open your mind. Okay. Yeah, don't expect them to revert back to the way they were before. They're growing up. They're becoming their own people. Respect that. Excessively asking for things. I used to tell my kids, if you ever ask for a treat, it's not a treat. It's me filling a demand. So never ask. So they would get treats because I just gave them to them. I offered them. It's not a treat if they're asking. So anyway, yeah, there must be a payoff. You must be giving in. They must just hound you so much that you eventually say, "Fine, will you get off my back if I give you this?" You have to give in for that to be happening. Yeah. Past the age of 3 to 3.5, they wouldn't be doing that unless you were feeding it. You must be feeding it. So that's a learned behavior is what I'm saying. You taught them to do that. So you can unteach them. Actually, I got to get going now. Okay. So if you go to the link above, you can I'm having a hard time saying that today. I don't know why, because I say it so often that it just sort of goes out of my head. Anyway, you can download my free behavior board, buy one of my mini toddler courses or my big boot camp course from 3 to 12 years old, or you can hire me for coaching. And I'll be back again tomorrow, Tuesday. That's my regularly scheduled lives on, do I do all three? Oh, I can't remember now. I know I do Instagram and TikTok. Facebook, I don't necessarily announce that one. Anyway, I should probably change that, shouldn't I? Anyway, so my regularly scheduled lives on TikTok is tomorrow night. So anyway, thanks so much for joining me, and we'll talk again tomorrow. Take care. Bye now.